Welcome to this workshop on Time to Move. I'm Megan Hilley and I am the project coordinator for Active Cornwall, who is currently working on the Children, Young People and Families portfolio, and I work on various projects within that. I'm just going to double check. We've got some more people coming in. Let's have a look. Cool. So during this session, I'll be introducing the revised Time to Move framework, and this has been developed with a range of key stakeholders to bring it a bit more up to date and fit for purpose. So we'll run through some housekeeping for the session. It's going to last about an hour, and as I said, it is being recorded. So if you feel more comfortable putting your camera on, off, you can do whatever you like. If you could just mute your microphone just to avoid disturbance, and then if you want to speak, raise your hand, use that function and I'll come over to you. And you can make use of the chat box for any questions and interactions, and I'll just try and pick these up as I go. But we do have some Q&A at the end, so you can always kind of save your questions for there. Cool. So I'll just give you a little bit of context about the Time to Move framework to help kind of understand why it's being produced and why we've developed it for Cornish schools to use. So you can see from the infographic on the screen to the left the current government guidance, and I know after being in other webinars today, lots and lots of people have been talking about this, and that's that every child and young person should be moderately to vigorously active each day for an average of 60 minutes across the week. The guidance is that it should ideally be broken up to have 30 minutes in school and 30 minutes at home. And obviously there's various ways to do this, but as we know, and we've heard lots today, the key driver for children to engage in physical activity, PE or school sports, is enjoyment. So there's 5 physical literacy components. The biggest kind of driver is enjoyment. So why do we worry about this? Why do we need to do it? Why do we do the work we do? The results from the Active Life survey from 2018-19 show that 51% of children and young people in Cornwall actually achieve this 60 minutes a day. And I think it was Jane Molyneux who was kind of praising us, saying that that's actually higher than the national average, which is 47%. So we do really well in Cornwall. 24% of those children and young people are fairly active, which means they get between 30 and 59 minutes of physical activity a day. But then that still leaves that quarter that she was talking about that are actually getting less than 30 minutes of physical activity a day. And that's, that is quite a scary figure. So National Insight also tells us that in England, currently 1 in 5 children are obese when they actually start school, and that rises to 1 in 3 when they leave primary school. So just with that in mind, I would like you to use the chat function to just insert a little emoji or something that represents how you feel about those statistics. So if you feel really happy about those numbers, you can put a thumbs up or a smiley emoji in the chat box. And if you feel like there is more work to be done and we can do a little bit better and work together, you can put something that represents how you feel about that. So utilize this chat box now and go for it. We'll come back to that in a second. So as you're doing that, I'll just carry on. So with all this kind of insight in mind, it's so important that we give children the best start we can at school, because they spend so much time there, and half of that 60 minutes, so 30 minutes of being active in school, is what we need to look to achieve. We really want to do that so that being physically active is a normal, integral part of the day for children, so they can foster healthy habits for the duration of their life. By doing this, we can reduce health inequalities, as well as giving children a wealth of other skills and experience that they can use in their wider learning and then on to their life. So as everyone said today, especially with COVID-19 and the effects this is having and the impact it will have for our children and young people for years to come, it's really, really important that we use physical activity as a tool for managing stress, as well as kind of promoting physical and mental health and well-being. So I'll just move on briefly to how we do that. So we gather local insight by working with key partners, and that's mainly from education. So this can be head teachers, business managers, PE coordinators, and people from multi-academy trusts. And we also use national insight like the Active Life survey, as Jane touched on earlier, to understand the picture of Cornwall and where we need to focus our work and attention. And the Time to Move framework is one of a few different ways we try to tackle the issue of inactivity and promote more physical activity in schools. So we also work on things like the school games. We give advice and support how to best spend your primary sport premium funding. We support with the administration of the Active Life Survey. We help schools open their facilities for community use. And we were instrumental in the distribution of the Healthy Pupils Capital Fund. And obviously you guys will know there's a big focus on active travel. So we do lots around active travel, as well as working around satellite clubs. So that's kind of how we do our work. And then we really want the aim of PE not to be the only part of the school sport offer where children can be active. So we want to encourage you to pack that physical activity and give lots of opportunities into the school day in really different, imaginative, innovative ways, whether that's actively travelling to and from school, having physical activity breaks in lessons, or getting outside to do daily mile. And that is what the Time to Move framework aims to help you to do. It aims to help you embed that culture into your school of physical activity and promote that active ethos. So I'll give you a summary of the Time to Move framework, just so we can kind of understand it a little bit more. So this framework has been produced by a range of key stakeholders in Cornwall, including head teachers and subject specialists. And it promotes every child's right to a healthy, happy life, focusing on the value of PE, school sport and physical activity. And that's to really focus in on closing those inequality gaps. It aims to improve life chances and make positive impacts on many of the wider challenges schools face. So that's kind of been touched on already today around attendance, attainment and behaviours. So for those schools seeking a comprehensive school sport offer, it provides a blueprint to be able to develop excellent delivery both within and outside of the school gates. And it really supports the deployment of the primary sport premium. So that's something that this can work really well as a tool for. The framework can help you to review and evaluate your current offer and create an action plan for your future, to understand the areas that you need more investment and work to develop these areas so that you can create that really kind of sustainable change and have a real impact and bring value to your children and young people that you work with every day. The mission, as you can see here, there's 4 elements to it. We really want to develop young people into active learners who enjoy physical activity and they lead active, healthy lives, and that's kind of integral to who they are. We want them to be capable learners who develop a sense of identity, self-worth, resilience and confidence in a broad range of situations. We need them to be successful learners who strive to be the best they can be and reach their potential in everything that they do. And we want them to be responsible learners with strong values, morals. We want them to be prepared for life and keen to make a difference and a positive effect on their communities. So at the minute, we're actually finalising the current updated framework so that it's more fit for purpose and up to date with more kind of recent insight. So to do that, we've worked around some information about what works in your school to increase levels of physical activity. So what I'd like you guys to do now is feel free to unmute yourself. And I want you to just have, if you're more comfortable, just have a think about it or write it in the chat box, that's fine. But I would encourage you to unmute your mics and have a conversation about this, about what actually works in your school or college or setting to actually increase physical activity levels. So kind of think about the things that you might put on your AFP or Time to Move review that you would do, and think about all those kind of cross-curricular things. So it could be community engagement, staff development, the engagement of the family and not just the pupils that you work with. So I just want you to have a think about what you do in your setting that actually works to promote physical activity, and then just share that with us if you can. So if anyone's brave enough to come forward. You can write it in the chat box.
We do active tutor times, Megan, for different year groups. So 1 tutor time a week. It's unfortunately been quite restricted due to COVID. Yeah. But up until that point, we were running like year 7s on a Monday, and they would opt where they wanted to go, and we would have all the spaces open for them, and they would have essentially 25 minutes extra activity a week. It doesn't sound much, but anything's better than nothing, hey? Yeah,
for sure. And why do you think that worked so well? Is that because they had the freedom to kind of choose what they wanted to do and they were more engaged?
Yeah, choice, time, you know, the buy-in from above, having the space to use, having, obviously the first step was getting PE staff off timetable as tutors. So that was quite a big thing. And just, I think it's them doing something different during the tutor programme, and it falling outside of PE lessons. It helps to change attitudes towards, you know, movement just being based in PE.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And the person who kind of facilitates that, the tutor, is that someone who's is a PE teacher, or is that just a member of staff who kind of feels confident enough to deliver that?
Oh no. So what I did was I had a meeting with the head, and I got my PE staff, or half of my staff, he wouldn't free us all up, freed from tutor responsibility. So during tutor time instead, we run an active tutor programme. So yeah, essentially before lockdown, we had every single student engaged. Now, because of pressure on facilities and numbers, it is now an option. So it's more of an intervention for the inactive or those students that have anxiety problems. We're going a little bit more down the mindfulness, activity and yoga front this term, and we're only doing it with Key Stage 4 at the moment, not Key Stage 3, because of the big numbers.
Yeah. And what kind of value do you think that is bringing to your pupils?
I suspect I probably need to do a questionnaire to find that out. But we've just
experiences of you kind of witnessing what you think you've seen. Do you think there's a difference? Do you think it's all value?
Yeah, enjoyment, working together, cooperation. Yeah, without doubt, absolutely.
Great, cool. Thank you so much. So we've got a few in the chat box as well. So open the sports hall at lunchtime seems to be good for Miss Stovall. Different year groups on different days. Dan's been saying that waking shakes throughout the school day work, so little activity breaks. So again, that's that cross-curricular embedding of physical activity, which obviously, as Sam touched on as well, works really well. Key Stage 4, Callum's been on. At Key Stage 4, we give the pupils the chance to choose their core PE options. So again, there's lots of that kind of ownership over the PE and the kind of curriculum for those children. So that, you know, it's kind of embedded. A lot of you do this already, but with young leaders programs and things like that, them taking that ownership is really is a really kind of rich experience for these young people. So yeah, I would agree with you all that that's some definite good practice in there. So is anyone kind of keen to let us know how you could do more, or what you would like to do, and maybe what the barriers are to being able to kind of implement more strategies? So anyone kind of think, oh, we would love to be able to do this in our school, but there might be something stopping you?
Am I right to speak again?
Yeah, you crack on.
Okay. So I kind of, thinking forward, I'd really like to develop it more whole school, and I've put into the department improvement plan this year, looking at creative active play. So training leaders up to make sure that breaks are active, giving them equipment, kind of going back to what we did, I guess, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and certainly in primary schools. To make sure that that's available for students. I've got one member of the department working on active travel, which is a bit difficult because a lot of our kids are bussed in, but certainly working on trying to develop different ways of getting to school. And alongside that, I've got another member of staff who's working on active leadership and developing a sports council so that we've got student voice and buy-in for what actually we want to hear from the students and what they want to do, what they think we need to do to drive forward. And then kind of the last strand, which I started, but then I was off ill for a while, is like active classrooms. So I started developing some CPD with staff ideas like the ones that Chris gave in the Well School, you know, getting up and moving into different shapes and jumping up for yes and down for no. And yeah, just trying to empower teachers that perhaps aren't confident so that students can get active breaks. But they're ideas at the moment and they're in my development plan. And for me, it's time. It's having access to staff for CPD, and it's a really difficult time at the moment to be bringing new things in. There's quite a lot of barriers, so yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like hats off to you for kind of going at it with everything being flung at you, illness and COVID and all the other restrictions. So yeah, massive hats off to you, and it must be really tough working in the school at the minute. So I definitely appreciate that, and obviously. This is a long-term thing, isn't it? So we kind of just take it day by day, take it slowly. All the little things that you're doing and continue to do are obviously making an impact and having real value for your children and young people. So all I can kind of do is say well done and keep going. And if you do need any help, we're obviously here to support. But yeah, you know, it's a tough time for sure. But thank you so much for sharing. So obviously, from what we've heard, like there's lots and lots of good practice that's going on, and people have got these ideas kind of embedded already of how you can increase physical activity in your setting. So you're already kind of working on that whole school kind of approach, which is amazing. So what I'll do is I'll just move on to the next slide to share this with you. And these 8 principles are the updated time to move framework has been designed around these, and it's kind of around various documents, but one in particular about what works to increase physical activity in schools and colleges. And the research has been published with the help of some of our colleagues who are on the conference this morning, so the YST, Public Health England, Association of Colleges for Sport. And the title of this slide is actually linked to that document, so you can take a look at it. It's a really interesting read. Or you can Google where it works in schools and colleges to promote physical activity. It's really easy to find. It's like the first one that comes up. So I'll just go through the 8 principles briefly to give you a picture of what they are and how you could implement them into your school as part of a whole school approach. But we have kind of touched on that by what we've been talking about already, so these should seem really familiar to you. Ultimately, we want to try and change behaviour. So that's in our young people as well as the kind of other staff that we work with, that you guys work with in schools, like Sam was saying. So upskilling those members of staff to kind of take on this challenge and embed physical activity into all the school day. We want to provide opportunities, motivation and capability so that young people can change their behaviour and adopt this physically active lifestyle and that mentality. So the first principle is a multi-component intervention. So you can see from the diagram that sits in the middle. It's the centre of all the principles, and it helps to ensure that everyone embraces the aim to embed physical activity into the day. So again, that's like all of the teachers, not just the PE staff, but it's also getting parents on board, governors and the pupils. So it's trying to adopt a whole school or whole community approach. And the likely actions relating to it are that you will embed that cross-curricular learning through PHSE and maximising the opportunities to embed physical activity across the curriculum. It's ensuring a supportive culture and a physical environment. So, you know, with kind of the research that we do at Active Cornwall, you see quite a lot of good examples and good case studies of schools that create an active environment throughout their whole school. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a fixed kind of PE or school sport. It can just be creating an environment that promotes physical activity, so climbing and jumping and sliding. And a really good example of this is Nan Salvern School, so I actually went down there and I saw that their school's set up perfectly for that. They've got a designated sensory area, they've got a really cool kind of playground that's laid out with mounds that kids can climb up and down. They've got really good, like packed full of opportunities for children to be active. It's also about whole school campaigns or events. So parents and governor engagement, and a good example of that is at Gulville School. They actually held, we've got a time to move video on our website, but they held an open day and they invited their community, so pupils and their families, as well as lots of local providers, and they all came to the school and had kind of like an open day where children could go around and look at all the possible providers that they could engage with and the activities they could get involved in their community, so a stone's throw away from the school or where they lived. And as a direct result of this, lots of children went on to join clubs from those providers who came in, so gymnastics clubs, even CrossFit Kids, things like that. So that's really embedding that kind of multi-component intervention and that whole school approach, so getting everyone on board. The second is skilled workforce. So like Sam was saying, trying to encourage those teachers who aren't as confident to get involved and get on board with the message that you're trying to convey, and understand that we need more opportunities for physical activity, even in their lessons. So a few people were kind of hinting on activity breaks in lessons, and there's loads of stuff out there, active maths and super movers and all that kind of stuff, iMoves and Go Noodle. They're all really good tools, really simple. Create Development, they have a great tool as well for people to just use as a tool for those members of staff who maybe aren't as confident, and that links really nicely to your primary sport premium. So you can use this funding to upskill and train staff in the delivery of physical activity in PE. Most schools in Cornwall are doing this, to be fair, because we can see it from your PSP reports, which is great, but really utilise that and utilise your sports network partnerships and Active Cornwall's workshops and training. YST training that's out there is great as well, so really use your PSP to kind of invest in that sustainability of the staff to be able to deliver that confidently. The third is the CYP voice, so we're talking about your students and listening to them, which you've all touched on already, which is great. So we need to ask the young people what they want, and we can ensure that the activities then are properly tailored to them and can support them in that participation. In addition to that, we want to encourage young people to act as role models. So I think it was Callum that said that they've got a young leaders program, as well as Sam. So by giving young people ownership of their learning and lifestyle, they'll feel more motivated to take a proactive approach. Again, this links really nicely to the primary sport premium. Lots of schools in Cornwall already do it. They have young leaders programs, and they ask the pupils what they want to do, and then they kind of get a trained member of staff. They train a member of staff up to be able to deliver these bespoke sports that children have voiced that they want. So, for example, down at Alverton School, they really had a focus on getting young girls active because there was a kind of disconnect there. So they consulted a cohort of pupils, female pupils, and asked them what they wanted to do. And that is so simple, but from that, they've engaged a whole school full of young girls who now want to engage in physical activity, PE and school sport because they own it. They've taken that kind of on board and they've told people what they want, and now they're really confident because they've been listened to. Active environments is number 4. This involves both the physical space and the social environment. So like I said before, they should have access to kind of open space, forests, parks, playgrounds, and that's throughout the day to encourage that physical activity. All environments can be multi-purpose to allow for activity, and in your school you can put up clear kind of displays and signage to encourage physical activity. I actually went into a school once that had it in their corridors, so it was like yoga poses, and you can kind of go along and use that as you walk along the corridor to kind of do different yoga poses, which is so simple but really effective. St. Wen School is another example of how they've turned their early years into a playground, turned their early years steps from their classroom into the playground into a really good opportunity for physical activity. So they've tiered it off into 3 different, instead of having steps or just a kind of slope, they've tiered it off into 3 different sections. So one is a climbing wall, one is a slide, and one is steps. So it just encourages that difference in physical activity, and it's more interesting for the children. You can see they're like, they want to use it, they're excited, they go on different things. It's just engaging them in that kind of movement. Choice and variety, number 5. We want to offer children a variety of physical activity and sport options that they can engage in, and it's for everyone. So it's from the less active to the most active to participate in something. The Active Life survey told us that one of the biggest drivers in increasing physical activity is enjoyment. So a focus on fun, play, and games, as well as traditional sports, can encourage increased participation. I think a few people have touched on the play element today, and it is really important. I think even as an adult, I still enjoy just being playful. So yeah, I wouldn't underestimate the value of that. A curriculum, teaching and learning. So a high quality physical education curriculum inspires all students to succeed and excel in competitive sports and other physically demanding activities. We should provide opportunities for pupils to become physically confident in a way which supports their health and fitness. Teachers need a good understanding of their subject. They need to offer progression, as well as making sure the fundamentals are there with regards to that physical literacy we were talking about. So that's motivation, confidence, competence, knowledge and understanding. So an example of this would be down at Trelaweth School. They adopted the Real PE curriculum, and that just helps them make sure all teachers are confident and supported through that implementation. And children get that activity break quite regularly. So it's just a really effective tool to help in the delivery of that whole school approach. We've got active travel. So this will play a really key role in increasing physical activity levels in all of your children and young people. It also kind of contributes to those wider system aims to reduce the carbon footprint as part of the climate emergency. It'll also help to reduce congestion around the school gates. And we did have a campaign not long ago that Active Travel were putting out with Sustrans and other partners around active travel. So we've got some bits on our website. If you want to become an active travel champion and you want to create an active travel plan, there's lots of information on our website about this. You can get involved with Mode Star shifts. We've got some links on our website. You can get involved with Bikeability. You can use some of the Ready Set Ride resources and really kind of get parents on board as well. I think that's really key with active travel. We want parents to get on board, so it's coming at us from all angles, so that children kind of are engaged wherever they are and whatever setting they're in. St Tesco are a great example of this. They invested in some fundraising some fundraising money that they got from engaging parents. They used that funding to invest in a few of these kind of bikes that turned into scooters. And then we worked with them on a fund called the Healthy Pupils Capital Fund, and they used that to get a rubber track installed. And then they also put in a storage shed that was like really easy to access for their children. And they put all children through Bikeability training. So all the children were competent in riding, the facilities were there, and they were used all the time. And they really could see the sustainability in this. They wanted to then engage their community and engage the parents to be able to then say, look, we've given this to your children. They now know how to ride bikes really competently and they enjoy it and they do it at school. So we want you to ride to and from school now. Walk, bike, scoot, whatever it is you want to do. And that really kind of encouraged that community connection as well, which was how you make that really sustainable. And the final element of these principles is monitoring, evaluation and understanding the learning. So effective self-evaluation of all the other principles ensures schools can identify a baseline of information and then identify appropriate actions that can help them achieve their objectives and assess the impact of their actions. So you really want to look at impact. I would say value is really important. How can we bring value to these young people's lives through kind of sport, physical activity and PE. So students can also be given the opportunity to monitor their own activity levels, their knowledge within PE and their participation in school sport. So you can put the ownership on them. And this then can be used as an improvement tool. So you can ask your pupils, okay, which area do you want to improve? What do you want to do more of? You can complete the Time to Move self-review. You can use the Active Schools Planner from Youth Sport Trust. You can survey, you can do the Active Life survey. So there's lots of ways you can monitor and evaluate. And I know you guys are, on the whole, really, really good at that. So yeah, keep that up. So I'm just going to give you a sneak peek of the new framework and briefly explain how you can use it. Bear in mind, this is still a draft version and isn't actually live yet. The final version is going to be embedded onto our new website, which we think will be coming next year. It will be really user-friendly, interactive and smarter than just a form or sheet to fill in. So it won't look like this. It will be a lot nicer for you. In the meantime, whilst we get it finalised, we can you can use this document. It should be live early next year if we haven't embedded it onto our website. And whilst we're developing this tool, we would encourage you to get in touch and send us any good example practices that you've got. So if you've got any really good case studies of what you've done in your school and how you've embedded these one or many of these 8 principles, I would definitely encourage you to get in touch so that we can see what you're doing in your schools and share that good practice. So I'll ping my email address up at the end so you can do that. So when you access the website, the vision at the minute is that you'll have your own user area, like a little portal, and you'll have a username and password that you'll log into and see all your documents in one place. You can save them in that area and come back to them. You can update them and then download them and upload them onto your own website as well. So it should be a tool that is fairly interactive and useful for you. On the slide, you can see a screenshot of the first page. So it's very similar to your PSP report. So if you've used the Time to Move tool we already have, you will have you'll be familiar with this. But hopefully the view is that it will pop up one question at a time. You'll fill it in and then you can download a full report and see it all together. So it gives you information on swimming, primary sport premium funding and how much funding you get, which I guess might change, we don't know. And then it incorporates that PE curriculum time as well as the physical activity levels in your school. From here, there'll be a area for each of the 8 principles. So there'll be a separate document for primary and secondary schools, which have very slightly different questions, but the general layout and principle of the document is the same. There are questions to answer about your offer. So for example, here, the principle is active travel, and the first question is, do you have an active travel plan? So the idea is that if you were to click no for this box, the last column that you can see on the right-hand side, actions for next year, would give you a pop-up and it would encourage you to do something. So in this case, it would have a pop-up to encourage you to write an active travel plan, and then that would link to the Mode Shift Stars website. If you clicked yes, we're thinking and hoping that actually you could link it to your school's active travel plan, or we could give you next steps as well. So we could say, okay, as a next step, have you got this? With Mode Shifts, there's different tiers. So it'd say, have you gone for your gold star or things like that. So it's a constant development tool and a learning. The impact column is a really good chance to get some quantitative evidence in there. It's useful if you do surveys or trackers to understand the impact year on year, then you can justify and evidence all the great work that you do. So for example, what national campaigns does your school take part in is a really good opportunity to say X amount of children got involved in the Big Pedal this year. And then if you write an active travel plan, you can see if this has had an impact on your the amount of participants in the Big Pedal next year. Because obviously the focus is active travel and the importance it has as part of your school ethos. So by doing this process for each area of implementation, you'll build a really comprehensive picture of what your school's doing and what you can be doing more of to promote a broad, extensive offer to your students in instilling that whole school approach to physical activity. So we've seen that it's important that you embed these 8 principles and that they work together and interdepend on each other to be able to get that wide school approach. So I'm going to ask you now and just leave you with the question really, what do you think you could do more of, or you will do more of in your school to embed these 8 principles? What principles do you do well, and which do you think you would like to embed a bit more? So I'm happy to kind of take any questions. I'm just going to check the chat box to see if there's anyone asking anything. It was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but hopefully this document will be in a bit more of a digestible format even before it kind of goes on our website as an interactive tool. So we're kind of hoping to get something out to you soon, even if it's not that kind of interactive. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions now if you do have any. If not, I'm going to pop my email in the chat box. Have it. And if you do have any questions, feel free to email me. The last thing, I think there's another slide on here. So as of next week, we've got the Winter Virtual School Games going on. If you haven't already registered for that, you can still take part. You don't necessarily have to register. If it gets to Monday and you've kind of got students and staff who want to take part in this, then there is a dashboard on our website. So if you go to activecornwall.org and then go to the virtual games pages on that website, you'll find kind of a dashboard, and it's got all the information in there. So the challenge cards are now live, and the results cards will go live next week, so you can still get involved. So there's that. So the address is there, Cornwall School Games at cornwall.gov.uk, if you have any questions regarding that. And then my email is in the chat box if you have any questions regarding time to move. So there you go. So thanks very much everyone for taking part today and joining me on this call. I'll hang around for another couple of minutes just in case you do have any questions. But other than that, I really hope you enjoy your afternoon and have a nice weekend.